Good morning and welcome back to a proper Auto Talk weekly wrap. Joining me as usual is Graham McDonald to my right, left, somewhere up and down, and Matthew
Yep.
Henson down the bottom, sitting at a museum of Hot Wheels apparently. Now, thank you for those of us who joined us for that very weird looking 5 minute Auto Talk weekly live last week
Yeah.
from the hosting desk at Auto Talk Live. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the support. Thanks to those who watched this normally, who actually turned up at the event, bought a ticket, or got a ticket from a supplier or something. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I would suggest it was a pretty darn good day, Graham.
Yeah, I learnt a lot, and I'm talking to people that attended the event, and everyone says something different about what they got out of it. But the unanimous thinking was that there was a lot of takeaways, a lot of really good speakers. Everybody had something that they could concentrate on and learn from. We actually went away from that and sat down and got a piece of paper and worked through all the things that we'd seen and we had highlighted, and came up with some alternate plans around the dealership as a result of that. I mean, this is real stuff, really good tools. So first of all, thanks a lot to the team for putting it on. Yes, I know I'm sort of speaking position as being a co-MC to an extent, but you know what? Everyone had some really good takeaways out of that, and I look forward to the next one. And if it's coming to a centre near you at some stage, I encourage you to make the most of it, because these are tools that as dealers, as businesses, we need.
Yeah, and I mean, just on that, we can confirm there will be more Auto Talk Lives. We're just in preparation at the moment for a Christchurch-based version of the event, probably about a half to 2/3 of a day, and that'll be in early February. It's going to be largely, we're going to pick up what we did in Auckland, tighten it up a little bit and pop it down there, probably starting about lunch and ending with the keynote of an Auto Talk Live, the open bar, because you got to do that. Though I have had discussions about whether we should allow beer at lunchtime at the next one, and maybe that was a little bit sleepy for people. It wasn't so much the beer at lunchtime that may have caused the issue for a couple of people. It was the fact that the bar staff didn't take the bucket of beer away, and so they kept on helping themselves, which is, adults can make their own decisions.
We're all grown-ups.
Matthew, of course, you went there because you had the Rona. How are you feeling now?
A bit better. I'm still. I'm hoping to get through this without having some sort of coughing fit, but I'm probably 95% better. Unfortunately, we've given it to our neighbours because I hear them firing up mostly in the evenings with these enormous fits of cough and stuff. I hope they're okay. But yeah, it was great to watch the Auto Talk Live. Obviously, I wasn't there, but I did watch the live stream, which was a really cool service to have. And echoing your remarks, it was great sort of to see how diverse the speakers were, and to have someone talking about TikTok in one moment and someone else talking about really sort of deep dive industry stuff the next.
Yeah.
You have moved out to the hood, so maybe that cough is from some herbal medicines.
The Papakura pharmaceuticals.
You can get that in the hood too, Richard. You just need to talk to the right people. Right.
Anyway, look, now, if you didn't make it, of course, there is still the ability to follow up on this great material. We filmed the entire day, and we'll be breaking out those sessions into videos over the next month or so. We have some really quick summaries of those events on the website, so just go in there and search Auto Talk Live. I'm going to try and put a link up the top so you can find it a little bit easier, and we have a whole pile of detail there as to what went on the day. So yeah, keep following that. We just think it's an awesome thing, an awesome way for the industry to get together. We think that there's so much access to news now out in the market that almost our bigger role, I feel now in the market, is assisting in just lifting the standards and more professional development, access to information for dealers, rather than just calling out the naughty ones and going on 15 times about every detail of government. We're going to do that still, but we think that professional development is just such an ongoing part of the role that Auto Talk can play in this automotive community, and a community is what it is. So we'll carry on with that, and we look forward to seeing you Christchurch folk in February. The first story that we're going to look at today, though, is, I guess, on that picking politics to death kind of thing, and that is that National's leader has done a U-turn on the clean car standard. And I don't think he's done a U-turn. I think this was just more... It's really dumb having two major policy things with a barely distinguishable name. So, National Party leader Christopher Luxon has reiterated support for the upcoming clean car standard following a live television fracas. The leader of the opposition appeared on the AM show earlier yesterday, so this was yesterday, detailing how National plans to keep the clean car discount if it can successfully defeat Labour in the forthcoming election. To quote, "We've got a government that is taxing people with utes and there is no alternative in subsidising wealthy Tesla drivers by giving them subsidies," he said on the show. "We think there'd be a different way to do it. We'd keep the clean car discount to make sure we've got low emissions coming in." He's just confused the words, would be a fair way to do it, isn't it, Graham? He's just done what half of us in the industry have done at some point and called the discount the standard and the standard the discount.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I was technical phrase here, I was pretty pissed off about it yesterday in a number of different areas. First of all, because I do think that the industry was looking for some relief over clean car standard. The industry accepts the clean car discount is here to stay. I mean, that's one of those little mechanisms that you can adjust and tweak, and at the end of the day, it doesn't make a lot of difference to how you operate your business. It's not a huge modifier. But the standard, and you know me, I've got a bit of an issue about widespread implementation of intrusive policy to our industry. Always have. And I always felt the standard was just that one bridge too far in terms of fundamentally trying to manipulate people's behaviour. So that on one hand. On the other hand, yeah, look, it's really easy to confuse the two. And I bet if you asked anybody out in the street right now the difference between the clean car standard and the clean car discount, they have no idea. I mean, we've said all the way through, this is beltway stuff. And until people turn up to buy a vehicle that's affected by it in 1, 2, 3 years' time, they don't care. It's just a non-issue. But I'm also pissed off that the National Party leader made that gaffe in the first place. And I can imagine Simeon Brown right now sort of sitting in the back office going, "Oh no, it's just bad politics."
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and what does the market need to do about this potential future government kind of not wanting to drop the one that they were going to drop something, and they're dropping the one the industry doesn't actually want to drop. I can guess why they're doing it. It's optics. It's the discount is this. They've bashed on so long about the ute tax. Well, there's more money is going to get stacked onto a ute by the standard than it is by a discount.
Exactly.
But of course, it's not necessarily in the public's face. So, yeah, politicking.
Well, and okay, so part of it also, you can lay at the blame of NZTA and the minister for not actually releasing the details of this until a couple of weeks ago. So from a political perspective, you can't blame Christopher Luxon in this case for not having a handle on what the standard might actually mean, because none of us knew what it would actually mean until 2 weeks ago. And that's part of the problem, is this misinformation or disinformation across the broader spread of the standard. This is where we're at. This is the confusion it creates.
Yeah, Matthew, pop quiz. What's the difference between the discount and the standard?
I guess in real brief, like layman terms, the discount is aimed at consumers, you and me, and the standard is aimed at dealers like Graham and co. But obviously, as a dealer, you're going to be hit by both different things. I will correct on one thing. National has previously voted against the clean car standard, so this is a U-turn to a degree. I think what you say about optics is definitely part of all of this, and why they've motioned against the ute tax and not the standard. I think the bigger part of that is that the standard is simply just it's a really complicated and frivolous thing to have to explain to the voter on the street. You and I, we all know that it's going to have a greater impact on the industry than the discount does. But trying to explain that in the middle of an election campaign to people who are voting is going to be much trickier. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Just to be clear, though, they voted against the Land Transport Clean Car Amendment Bill, which covered both the discount and the standard. They went separate legislation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, interesting, of course, and good for me is that the NZTA is actually advertising on autotalk.co.nz to help people understand the standard.
Well, there's a happy.
And I also guess just a reminder, there is a VIA led or VIA associated presentation being put out by NZTA, I think 10:30 today, Graham, about the standard.
Yeah, it is. Going to hop one to the other. Although I will also say on this, I think what needs to happen rather than webinars is they actually need to do a series of video takeaways, either place them on YouTube or put them on the NZTA website. I mean, it's really hard for dealers to sit down, especially you think about some of the smaller dealers who this affects, because it affects everybody, to put aside an hour and a half on a specific time on a Friday to get the information they need. And I'm going to watch it obviously and participate, but much better I thought it would have been to do a whole series of takeaways at this early stage, and you can unpack it when you want to. Sit down on the weekend, sit down at night, because this is really important stuff, and you want to be in the right frame of mind, almost the right mindset to sit down and digest it.
Yeah. Right, now let's move on to the second story of the day, and I'll flick my tab across. The Ebbett Group has retrenched from opening its Nelson dealership, and I think this is an interesting sign of just that the market's starting to get just a wee bit nervous on a few things. The Ebbett Group has confirmed that it will not be opening its new dealership site for Skoda, GWM and Havala Nelson, as previously announced to market in March 2022. It would have been the company's first foray into the South Island market, and a spokesperson for Ebbett Group says it's a difficult decision for the company to make. Planning for the Nelson dealership started well over a year ago. Unfortunately, in that time, New Zealand economy has changed significantly, which means the business case no longer makes sense, the spokesperson said. Now, interestingly, if you're in the kind of New Zealand automotive LinkedIn space, you would have seen a couple of actual management hires for that site had already moved down there, and I think at least one of them is on LinkedIn saying, I'm looking for opportunities. So if you are after some talent, which I think everyone is, perhaps just fish around in that pool there as to people who have been kind of left out in the cold by this. I'm sure Ebbett's looking after them well enough, but definitely something interesting there. The dealer, and there's actually an interesting session we saw from Deloitte on the weekend, is that we are seeing changing profitability now off the back of, these deliveries are just blowing out so long, it's changing the model, and then we're also seeing just the cold wind blow through mortgage finance, that kind of thing. People are getting a little bit nervous out there, aren't they?
Yeah, and I've been banging on about this for a number of different shows now, that and look, dealers, we are sort of notoriously secretive about these things. We don't want to sort of let on to our business colleagues or our competition that things are slower than we pretend, and we all sort of put up the flags and we have the glad ends and everyone's happy and we're selling lots of cars. The truth of it is, I've said it a number of times, it's pretty difficult out there. There's a noticeable decline in new customer activity. The new market, it's hard to look at that and get a handle on what's happening, because that's based around sales and in terms of registrations. We don't see how many vehicles are actually being sold, because those deliveries might not take place for months after the actual sale has been made. And right now, we're still seeing deliveries being made of vehicles that were ordered back when the sort of the rosy glow of the economy was underway. But now it's a bit like when the tide goes out, what's actually exposed. Used vehicle sees it first, because people are making immediate decisions to buy vehicles that are immediately there. Whereas the new vehicle industry is people making decisions about a product that they might have to wait for 2, 3, 4, to in this case 12 months. It's a bit chilly out there, everyone. And if you haven't noticed it, you obviously have a product that everybody wants right now. And I'd say, look, the EV sector is one of those where they can sell every car they can get. But in the used sector, it's difficult to know at the moment what the Christmas season is going to look like. Do you stock up? Do you hold your stock back? Do you pay the money in Japan? Do you hold back and wait to see if prices come down? Do you expand the range? Do you decrease your range? What do you do? I don't think anyone's got a handle on it right now, but I think everyone's playing it very cautiously indeed.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, of course, that this is one of those, it feels like slightly rarer situations where a North Island dealer group is going into the South Island as opposed to a South Island dealer group going into North Island. If you look at some of the biggest dealerships in the North Island, they're all South Island owned or founded now, and this one was going the other way, and it's not gone well. Yeah,
No.
interesting that. Yeah,
I mean,
wonder
I
what the
hear
difference
stories
is.
about. I mean, as I say, I heard stories about just around the Auckland area about dealers that have been planning new sites. This is in the used sector, planning expensive new sites on the basis of the sales we had in March, April, May. Banked all the money, bigger developments, bigger buildings. I know of two that have actually rapidly retrenched those plans in the last couple of months. One is not actually building a building on site. Another one is actually going for the gravel model rather than $200,000 worth of asphalt. And people are making, really interesting decisions about what they see the medium or short-term future of those businesses are going to be. They're not expecting to stop trading, but they're certainly rapidly shrinking the outgoings, I suppose, and their commitments. So yeah, you can read a lot into that.
Yeah. Right, on to the next story, and we'll bring this back up. Colonial Motor Company chair has warned of a fragile, challenging future. The Colonial Motor Company held its 104th annual meeting last Friday, where the company chair, Ashley Warg, detailed the challenges that lay ahead of the firm. In his address, he celebrated the company's record-breaking 2022 financial year, confirming that it followed that up by recording a robust first quarter for financial year 2023. But he also issued warnings about market fragility due to the current economic climate, citing inflation, consumer confidence, and the clean car standard as future concerns. Now, I guess when we consider that probably the single biggest product that company moves through its dealership is the Ford Ranger, clean car probably is a little bit of a concern, though arguably they're moving a lot of Rangers at the moment, aren't they, Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, in spite of, obviously the clean car discount has shown, even with that in place, that there's the threshold that people are still going to want to buy Ford Rangers around the country. We've talked about, previously about how Ford has already said that model is going to incur some pretty big price rises when clean car standard arrives. I'm kind of nervously anticipating in early January a whole bunch of announcements or releases from different distributors around the country about what modifications they're making to prices on various vehicles, and the Ranger is going to be one of those vehicles. I guess one of the other things
and no one will care because they all want the Ranger.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. One of the things that Colonial is kind of doing, I mean, they're clearly trying to gear up support for other things that are in their stable. And one of the things that they mentioned in that same conference was the dealer renovations and things that they're doing throughout the country. I think there were 6 or 7 different sort of dealer groups, and probably a few within those groups that are all having renovations and upgrades. And reading between the lines, it looked like a lot of them are going to start getting EV chargers as part of this. Obviously, Ford is going to come out with the E-Transit and the Mustang Mach-E next year, Graham's favourite. But also there's one of the commercial, one of the truck sellers that they have has EV trucks being ordered next year as well.
I think Ford's actually mandated that throughout their network as far as their upcoming stuff. But, that's great to see that they're investing in those kinds of areas. And, they're be a good one. I think, look, they're onto a hot thing at the moment with the Ranger. It's going to keep them very busy. Mazda, their other kind of core brand seems to be steady. Nothing amazing on the horizon, nothing bad. So yeah, we'll see. Though
I mean, we'd be pretty glad they've got Colonial. They've got Kenworth and DAF on the books as far as the product stable is concerned. I don't pretend to know what the profitability is on a Kenworth, but I can imagine it's not small. And between those two brands, they've got the commercial market. I think a pretty big chunk of that. So, the beauty of operations like Colonial, and we were talking about EBITS a second ago, is they've been smart enough to spread themselves across a lot of different spheres of the transport sector, whether it's heavy or it's light or it's commercial or it's EV. And so, as one part of that sector drops away, there's another part that actually starts performing really well. And that's the hallmark of, I think, of some really good operators in our industry. We're lucky to have in New Zealand where they do have that ability to be flexible around a changing marketplace.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now, our next story today is one that I suspect was a bit of a PR and information fail from the AA, probably entirely accidentally. So we have good news, I guess, in that long-standing New Zealand Automobile Association senior executive Kyle Lincoln has been appointed as the acting general manager of the Motoring Services Division. He first joined the AA in 2018 as Auckland Mobile Vehicle Inspections Manager and has held two further senior management roles since. Lincoln has extensive automotive credentials, starting out as a vehicle technician for a new vehicle franchise in 1988, then moving into the role of business manager and service manager for a couple of new vehicle dealers. So always good to see some great dealer experience going in there into a key industry role. The interesting thing about how this communicated was, at the time that this came out, no one had actually discussed what was happening to existing AA Motoring Services General Manager Jonathan Sergel. So us and a whole pile of other people running around going, well, that was sudden. Jonathan Sergel's gone. Had people texting me across the industry saying, where's he gone? He emailed me from his work email yesterday. Has he been shoved out the door suddenly? And of course he had it. So we got a email from the AA saying, no, he's not gone. Sorry. He's getting an internal promotion. So perhaps when, and I'm not entirely sure how this came out the first, but I think it might have been through LinkedIn. Perhaps when this was done, there should have been some coordination of indicating that Jonathan wasn't out on his butt, because the industry certainly jumped to that conclusion very quickly. So our apologies to Jonathan. Not that I think we did anything wrong. But he's not gone. I don't know what role he's off to yet. We've been told we will learn imminently. But that was certainly an interesting one. And for those in the industry going, well, why does that matter to me? Why should I worry about who's running AA Motoring Services? Well, particularly if you're in the used import space, that person controls the AA certification business. So inspections and the inspectors they place in the used import compliance workshops, they control those. So it is of importance. It is a big part of the industry. And of course, they offer a lot of registration services and so forth to dealers. And Jonathan, I think, has been pretty good for the AA. I mean, he replaced the very long-standing Stella Stock, so I think they had a slightly different remit. I think he was very much there to push forward the commercialization. So he has done a pretty steady job. It'd be interesting to see where he lands. You had much dealings with Jonathan Graham?
Well, he's formerly out of the Turners Group, and some time ago, and he was a very capable operator when he was with Turners. I'm not an AA. We don't use AA services for our entry certification and things like that. But you've got to argue and say that he's done a very good job of maintaining that brand. And there's a few new little core services coming through too. And I suspect someone like Jonathan in the role, and goodness knows what the new project or role will be, but perhaps it's a sidebar to being the general manager, is actually being special projects, whatever that might be. I guess watch this space. I'm sure good things will come of it. The AA is just so well funded and such a vast membership of people involved in that whole big group that there's just so many different ways to skin the cat, so to speak, to make a commercial buck.
Yeah. Matthew, have you ever been turned down by the AA for a warrant?
Not by the AA.
Do you hunt out the dodgy back one for back street one for your Honda?
Well, you are in Papakura, Matthew.
What does that mean, Graham?
I believe you're supposed to call it Kura, Graham. Kura.
Oh, sorry.
I'm in Pahuri, but until I get confident in pronouncing that, I'm going to say I'm in Papakura. So, which is I'm also pronouncing wrong, to be fair. But anyway.
Yes, exactly. Now, let's talk briefly before we let you run to go off and watch the NZTA talk about the standard, Graham. What did we get up to on Saturday night?
We had man fun.
Do we have to put an age restriction on this video today, boys, or are we good?
No.
About that. We went to the Hollywood cinema. Some cobbers of mine in the classic car scene have persuaded the people at the Hollywood cinema to put on a special screening of the 1980 movie Used Cars. And we all turned up there in our best denim and slick back, comb back hair, receding hairlines, and man paunches, and ate popcorn and very good beer in the cinema and watched this classic 42-year-old movie about two rivals in the used car scene in southern Arizona, and it ticked all the boxes for the non-PC movie of the year. And the best part about it was all the terrible trailers they put on beforehand of the worst of the late 70s cheesy American action flicks. God, it was good.
Yeah, it was interesting. It wasn't just the well, there are a couple of things. Firstly, those trailers they put on a trailer for Death Proof, and I was sitting there going, do the people running the cinema, and these are people who serve only vegan pies, realize that this was a homage to that era made later, or whether it was of the era as such? It was just.
I bet that they got that.
I think the trailers were funnier than the movie itself. I mean, the movie was great. I'm going to put see if I can, just tweaking the technology here, put on the trailer to cars itself, to used cars itself.
I can't see anything on my screen there, Richard.
If you can't do it, I don't know if you can track these things down on the internet or not, but if you're sitting in a dealership and you want to give your staff a bit of an evening's entertainment and say, hey, look, here's how we could do it, or here's how we couldn't do it. All seriousness, what a great way to both entertain your staff and get them talking about all the cliches about the used car industry, and then sort of tick off all the boxes of things that you wouldn't do, but clearly wouldn't do. But I actually think as a staff, a bit of a fun exercise, it'd be a great way to get the team together. I really do. I just difficulty getting a hold of a copy, that's all.
Yeah, we're just having some tech fun here, Graham. Can you see the trailer on your screen?
No, I cannot. No.
Well, if anyone's watching, if you can tell us if you can see the trailer, that would be great, because, it doesn't matter. People can hear us, but we're playing it in the window now. Maybe it works, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But hey, look, we've got to try this technology first. But, yeah, are you suggesting that you can't put strippers on top of a car on a Friday night and bring families in?
I gave it some serious thought. What I did like was the idea of going across to maybe a rival dealership with a shotgun, and I can't give you the full rundown of what they actually said when they're in the shotgun at the cars. But these prices are too high. I guess you had to be there.
I think there's a couple of dealerships in your area that might try and pull that kind of trick, but couldn't possibly comment. Yeah.
Anyway, so if you ever have a chance to, and I'm serious, what a great staff night out. Get them and watch the video, get popcorn and beer and pies and bits and pieces, have a laugh about that. And, the funny part about it is there are definitely dealerships, particularly in America, where that was the way of doing business. I mean, maybe they hamed it up a wee bit. I went used car buying in the early 90s in Southern California, and I can tell you right now, there are some places, particularly out in Orange County and San Bernardino, and it's pretty much how they were. So, prototyping.
Graham, I have an idea. We should arrange a screening for the industry. How many dealers do we get into Hollywood, into the Hollywood cinema?
It's not a silly idea, Mr. Edwards. It's not a silly idea at all.
We might have to convince them to serve something other than vegan pies and non-dairy ice cream, but
no vegan pies, thank you. That was a bit of a letdown.
Yes. The meat sticks at Go-Go Music Cafe afterwards, though, they weren't bad. But anyway.
Oh, they were a talking point.
Right. Look, thank you, everyone. Now, next week's episode will be the last episode for Mr. Hansen in the bottom. He is leaving his home here at AutoTalk and going off into the big wide world. We're very proud of him. So the next episode will be the last, so don't forget to join for that. And we will say a proper farewell to Mr. Hansen. And we will catch everyone next week. To go run off now to the NZTA Clean Car Standard event, and we will catch you later.
Oh,
Yeah,
Brad.
if the screen didn't work, there's not much I could do about it live. It doesn't really matter. People can still see us.
Yeah. We were just.
Most people watch.
I noticed every time we shifted to the left, I'm guessing that's when it was meant to be on.
Yeah.
It worked
Yeah.
for like half the episode.
Yeah, God knows what happened there.
And then it
Oh, well.
didn't. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay.
Right, all good?
Can you? I sent you a message during the thing. Can you quickly go and jump on a register and jump on that call? That NZTA call?
Oh, yes. Yep. Yeah, I can do that. Yep. Sweet. Over
If you
go.
want.
No, I'll try. And you want me on the current session that's just started?
Yeah. Unless like Jeff's already on it, but I don't think he is.
No, I'm gonna guess he's not. I'll email them now.
Yeah, there's probably not a huge amount to do out of it, but maybe just keep it on the background in case the dealers kick off.
Yeah. There's always some good Q&A stuff in there.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, mate, appreciate it.
Right. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.